What up, good people? Hope y'all are having a great day. Hope you checked out those games today. I'm here to give you the morning after, even though it's not the morning, but it is the morning after show. So it is the show after the game. So today we had some good games. Well, we actually had two good games for different reasons. We had the Minnesota Lynx with the Connecticut Sun, which turned out to be a great game. Very happy that that's going to game 3. And then we also had the defending champions, the Las Vegas Aces, in a blowout over the Chicago Sky. I don't think that was really a surprise to anyone. So let's jump in. Got a couple of things I want to say about those two games and then the games coming up on Tuesday, September 19th. So hope y'all are having a great day so far. All right. So as y'all know, I have a very specific format for my morning after show. And the morning after typically goes with a quick game summary, who the stars were, what had happened was, and then fix it Jesus, the adjustments that need to be made. If this particular series is not continuing, as in the Aces series, I'm still going to talk about what needs to be done with the Aces if you want to have a chance of beating them. So shall we jump into it? Let's do it. All right. So I'm going to give you the box scores and talk from the box scores because you guys have heard this before. Numbers never lie. But what we don't always know are the stories behind the numbers. So you can look at a box score and be like, oh man, it was terrible because only 2 people scored. But that doesn't really necessarily always tell the full story of why a team ended up the way they ended up in that game. All right. So let's talk about Minnesota. Again, Minnesota and the Connecticut Sun. As I mentioned in my last morning after, I think it was, they were a little mad about their last outing. They got blown out by the Connecticut Sun, and they took it personal, right? They took it extremely personal. Their coach took it personal. Their staff took it personal. And their players took it personal. And it was real cool for me to see Minnesota, which is a relatively new team, relatively newly put together team. And they have pretty young leadership. They were able, and I'm talking about Kayla McBride, and I'm talking about Napheesa Collier. So they got pretty young leadership, and they were able to bring that team along. I heard the story in one of the shows, in one of the games, where Napheesa was saying that it was just a few years ago that she was a rookie, and she was in rookie camp and had all these plays. And because I don't know if y'all know this, but a lot of coaches in the WNBA have a lot of plays. I mean, plays for days, plays for days. And so it's overwhelming when you're in rookie camp trying to go from a college system to a WNBA system with some of the greatest coaches in our game. And they have a pretty expansive and a pretty difficult playbook. So I was happy to see Minnesota come together for that reason, because I know what it's like to be a young player on a young team. I know what it's like to be a veteran on a young team, and how overwhelming everything is. Things y'all wouldn't even think about that are overwhelming for rookies and players who were like the first 2 or 3 or 4 years in the league. So happy that Minnesota was able to pull it together, not only for them, but honestly for the W, y'all. We don't need blowout games. Now, we know in a playoff system where one's going to be playing 8, we know that that's going to probably, we know that there have been instances where that was not a blowout. But for the most part, if you have the top tier team, and the person at the bottom, that's not supposed to be a tight game in basketball competitive language. It's not supposed to be a tight game, but if it is, hey, cool. So we don't really want blowouts, y'all. I know y'all love y'all team. You want your team to win. You want your team to succeed. You want them to advance. You want them to thrive and all that. But for the league and for fans, we don't necessarily want blowout games. But anyway, this game was tight. It was as advertised. And what I'm going to point out in the stat sheet is something that might look like it would be a problem, and I'll share why it wasn't in this particular game. So this is Minnesota's box score. And as you can see, Napheesa Collier had 26 points, and Kayla McBride had a big game with 28 points. And then nobody else was in double figures. In some cases, that might be an issue. But in the case where they played a lot of players, and they got everybody scored. Everybody who played, unless I cut it off, scored. That's significant, because even though they weren't in double figures, they were involved in it. And when you've got players involved and contributing and hitting the box score, then it does something to your team on the floor. So while you only have 2 players who almost had 30 each, which might be a problem in some instances because there was so much contribution in different ways, not just in scoring, but in rebounding and defense, because that was the part of the culture for this particular game. it bode well for Minnesota. When I look at the box score for the Connecticut Sun, why is that there? I don't know if y'all can see that, but hopefully y'all can. You got DeWanna Bonner. There we go. DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas. Similar situation to Minnesota. Both almost had 30 pieces. And then the next person was Rebecca Allen at 10. All right. Not a whole lot of involvement of other players. Dejanay Carrington. Now, these people played 20 minutes, half the game or whatever, but not a whole lot of contribution when it came to really doing the things that really make the game go one way or another. So even if somebody's not scoring a lot of points, are they having impact defensively? Are they having impact in very specific categories like rebounding, hustling? What are they doing? Something I didn't get that sense from the players from Connecticut. And I definitely think that Heidemann and let me see if I can definitely think that the guards need to have a bigger presence for Connecticut. When Connecticut has been successful, we know AT is going to do what she does. We know that DeWanna Bonner is going to do what she does. But when Natasha Heidemann, I think that's her name. Let's make sure I'm not giving her somebody else's name. Get over here, person. All right, hold on. When Heidemann is involved in what Connecticut is doing, and I mean literally being a scoring point guard, they are way better than we saw them be today. Now, that's the case for whenever you have a scoring point guard and they are not being a scoring point guard, a team typically has a harder time winning. Not saying they never win, but they have a harder time winning. Try to think of times when you've seen point guards like Chelsea Gray not be in the mindset of scoring. Las Vegas is a different team. We'll get to them in a minute. So that's what I have to say about this team. But I also want to show you about this game, rather. I also want to show you something. If you can see the box score with DeWanna Bonner. Now, DeWanna Bonner was 6 of 10 from threes, because I didn't put the headings up there. She was 8 of 20 from field goals, right? So she took 10 three-pointers. That's not uncommon for her. But here's what I would like to see, and I think it will really make a difference with the Connecticut Sun. Because DeWanna Bonner is such an offensive juggernaut, she can shoot the three, she can put it on the floor, she can take it to the hole. I would love to see her have more of a competitive advantage by posting up people, because she's a matchup nightmare. Who are you gonna put on her? You're gonna put a big slow person on her? You're gonna put a short fast person on her? Who are you gonna put on her? She's 6'3" or something? Maybe 6'5", I don't know, but because I'm not looking at her height, but she's big. She's big, and even though she's not bulky, you can't guard somebody who can shoot and score, great footwork on the box if you don't put a good defender on her. So I think sometimes Connecticut allows DeWanna Bonner, because she can shoot the three, to face up too much. You got to take advantage of the fact that she can take people down low and really be a mismatch nightmare. Okay, so that's what I would say about Connecticut. That's just one of the things. Obviously, I could do a whole 20, 30-minute analysis of each team, and we don't want to do that today. But I just want to say that's one big difference that can be made with Minnesota's defense in Game 3. If you're looking for other things to do, and I really think teams need to approach each game not just as, okay, well, we did this in this game, then we're going to keep doing that in this game. They might make an adjustment. So you got to come with the full bag. Every game, especially when you go into playoffs, you have to come with the full bag. You have to be prepared to do different things. So I would definitely, if I'm on Minnesota's staff, I would be talking to Cheryl about making sure that we watch out for the fact that DeWanna Bonner may post some of our smaller guards up. And if I'm Connecticut, I'm saying, I'm posting these little chicks up. I'm not going to keep doing what I did in the previous game. I'm going to do that and do it better, but I'm also going to come with some other tricks up my sleeve as well. So that's what I got to say about the Connecticut-Minnesota game. It was well worth admission. And now we're going to transition to the Aces and Sky. Totally wasn't surprised by the outcome of this, because the Sky's relatively in a renovating, rebuilding kind of situation with Candace Parker leaving, and then coach leaving midseason, right? And then Vandersloot leaving, going to New York. So they're in a difficult position, and they just don't have enough weapons. Bottom line, they don't have enough weapons. Could have been more competitive? Yes. And I'm going to share how I feel like they could have been a little more competitive. But do they have the weapons? Nah, not really. Not to beat the Aces, not to beat the defending world champions. So let's talk about the Aces. since this is really about them, since they're advancing. The first thing I'll say about the Aces is, dang, they look like they had something to prove. And I've been on teams with players who were MVP caliber teams and who were MVP caliber players and who didn't get MVP. And I watched how they played in the game after the MVP stuff was announced. And Asia's competitive. She didn't tell me this, although, you know, my Utah Stars are in the lineage. I could call Asia and be like, hey, so you look a little mad, sis? I could do that. But Asia didn't tell me this. I was just watching the passion that she was playing with. And I was like, man, this is some anger. This is some revenge. This is, let me show you. And I dug it. I loved it. Asia had 38 points and 16 rebounds. Now, well, I can go, that's good for our league. It's good to, let's see, our superstars or whatever. If I'm on the Skies team, I'm thinking, y'all can't do nothing with Asia? I mean, y'all not going to do anything with Asia? Do something with Asia. You can't allow a player of that caliber to just move freely about the country, move freely over the court. You have to have a plan for slowing her down. And I'm not of the opinion that the Aces are unbeatable. The Aces, we've seen this season, they can be beaten. But you got to have a plan for it. You got to have a serious plan for how you're going to slow Asia down. You cannot allow the Aces to play in a game as if it were an all-star game, as if it were a clinic. That's what the Aces look like, y'all. That's what they look like against Chicago. They look like they were running a clinic. Chelsea Gray doing her thing. I didn't see Plum do a whole lot, but Chelsea was balling. Asia was balling. I mean, when those two are going, it's hard to beat. So looking ahead to the next series, I won't talk a whole lot about this because I want to wait for the matchups, for the full matchups, but you have to have a plan for the Aces. You can't just say, well, they're the best team in the country, the best team in the W, and what are we going to do with them? You got to have a plan for them. You got to decide, hey, are we going to give Chelsea Gray the mid-range shot? We're going to make her pick it up at the nail. We're going to make her pick it up right after half court. We're going to let her have it and let her shoot. You're sacrificing. When you're playing the best team in the league, you're going to sacrifice something. So what you're going to do, you're going to give up more for Chelsea. You're going to let Plum drive you crazy. You're going to keep Asia from getting the ball. You're going to triple team her. You got to try different things, because what we've seen with the Aces is that one thing doesn't work. But that's what you got with the Aces today. That's why they were so dominant, is just because they were just in their bag. They were just Asia, 38 piece, 30 piece, almost a 40 piece. Chelsea was balling. Everybody was getting exactly what they wanted. And the last thing I'll say is, as we go into playoff mode, yes, you've seen teams 3 or 4 or 5, 10 times. You played them 3 or 4 or 5, 10 times. So you've got to bring some surprises to the next level, both offensively and defensively. If you're thinking you're going to walk onto the court in the playoffs with the same bag and the same tricks that you had during the season, that's a bad plan. So I will see you guys the morning after the New York Mystics game and the morning after the Dallas Atlanta game. Talk to you soon. Oh, I forgot to say, give me your predictions. I always say that because I'm interested. Give me your predictions. Not just the team you want to win, but what you think is actually going to happen in the Minnesota game. What do you think is going to happen in the Dallas and the New York game? Now, peace. I'll see y'all next time.